Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Snuff the Magic Dragon and Other Bombay Family Bedtime Stories by Leslie Langtry. Narrated by Emily Durante. Once upon a time, there was a family of assassins called the Bombays. My name is Gin Bombay, and I'm a retired assassin. Because I've retired early and am a bit bored, I decided it was time to write down all the stories that have been passed down in our family for the last few millennia, the Bombay Bedtime Stories, if you will. First of all, I'd like to make it clear that these stories have been passed down orally. Second, I'm not a historian or writer, so I may get some things wrong here and there. I've decided to write in my own voice, as if I were there, which I was not. If you are some jerk, Ivy League professor bent on pointing out all my mistakes, I may just have to come out of retirement for one more job, if you get my drift. I'd like to dedicate this book to my wonderful daughter, Romy, who was born, through no fault of her own, into this crazy family. These stories entertained me when I was growing up. I hope you enjoy them. Virginia Bombay. Bombay, the, first Bombay, the Minotaur. Island of Crete, 1256 BCE. I had to move carefully, I reminded myself, as I knocked over a clay pot. Who had clay pots anymore? It was the Bronze Age, for the gods' sake. Clay pottery was useless and would never again be worth more than the dirt it was mixed from. The pot tottered precariously. My reflexes were pretty quick, though, and I caught it before it hit the stone road. After regaining my breath, I slipped into the shadows, away from the market, toward the outskirts of town. My contact was nervous, an idiot, an Athenian. He did not like coming to Crete to meet me, but he had no choice. If he wanted me to get the job done, he'd have to come here. I wasn't fond of sailing. Too many sea monsters and that overly sensitive Poseidon. I'll keep my sandals on terra firma, thanks. Let Kodros take the risk. I didn't know what he wanted me to do, but he promised me a lot of money. A noise from my left gave me pause. I froze, willing my body to blend in with the wall behind me. Nothing. Probably a bird or something. At long last, I reached the crossroads. Kodros was there, twitching nervously, naturally. Fucking Athenians. "You came," he said as he ran his hand through his thick curls. He'd been my contact for the last year. It took him that long to stop staring at my breasts. Apparently, Athenian girls covered theirs, unlike Cretan women, and also he'd never seen a pair before. Aside from the fact he was a moron and had no clue as far as Cretan fashion was concerned, he was passable to work with. "Of course I came," I snapped. "What do you want?" Kodros looked left and right as if he didn't trust me not to be followed. I rolled my eyes skyward and asked the gods for strength. "We want to pay you 3,000 gold coins to kill the Minotaur." 3,000? I asked. Surely I misheard him. That was a lot of money. More money than I would ever see in my lifetime. Was this some sort of trap? Kodros nodded. He looked right and left again, which pissed me off, before reaching behind a rock and pulling out a bag loaded with something heavy. He tossed the bag at my feet. "Here is half," he said quietly. "Once you prove the Minotaur is dead, you will get the rest." I bent down to examine the bag in the fading light of dusk. My fingers slid past the rough material and closed on a pile of cold coins. I stood, leaving the bag on the ground. "The Minotaur is a myth," I said. King Minos was always messing with the Athenians. No such half-man, half-bull existed in real life. Did they really believe that? This had to be a trap. Kodros shook his head violently. "We have been told that we are to send 7 Athenian girls and 7 boys to be sacrificed in the labyrinth to this beast. If the beast is dead, there will be no sacrifices." He stuck his chin out as if to make his point. Okay, say the Minotaur does exist, and I kill him. Why wouldn't Minos just demand the kids anyway and kill them outright? I mean, that's what I would do. You didn't need a man with a bull's head to kill people. If the Minotaur is dead, Kotor slammed his right fist into his left palm, Minos will not ask for tribute. On Crete, we had a lot of jokes about Athenians. Named, ironically, for the goddess of wisdom, Athenians were rubes who believed in stuff like flying horses and minotaurs. How many Athenians does it take to milk a goat? 5. 1 to hold each of the 4 legs, with the 5th one running off to find someone from Crete. Believe me, that's a howler in my village. I can't be responsible for what Minos does. If I take your money, kill this Minotaur, and the demand for sacrifice continues, your people will come after me. No, you won't be held responsible, and we will pay you once we have proof the monster is dead. Minos won't demand the tributes. If he does, then he's a fool. Kotor spat on the ground. All right, then. I lifted the very heavy bag from the ground. I'll do it, and I'll get you your proof, and I won't be responsible for what happens after. We meet back here in 4 days. I'll have your proof, and you'll have the rest of my money. He nodded and slipped away into the shadows. It took me longer to get back home as I dragged an extremely noisy bag of coins through the streets in the darkness. Once inside my little house, I barred the door and dumped the bag on the table. I froze for a moment from the loud sound of coins clanking together, exhaling only after I didn't hear anyone beating on my door. Why was I worried? I lived alone, with no friends or family on the whole island. People never noticed me. I could slip in and out of anywhere without anyone knowing I was there. Now, why did I take this job? That confused me a little. I'd been a thief and a spy for most of my 16 years, but killing? My eyes slid to the bulging sack. Well, clearly that was more lucrative. Besides, I wasn't really going to kill anything. The Minotaur. Honestly, those Athenians would fall for anything. There was no Minotaur. What idiots. They couldn't even mess things up properly. Sometimes those bastards would sneak in and attempt to ruin some festival or another by setting all the goats loose, or pouring honey on the streets. You know, the usual Athenian bullshit. King Minos kept sending our navy to kick their asses, but this crap still happened. He even told the Athenians if they didn't knock it off, he'd demand 7 boys and girls every 9 years to feed to his weird, made-up man-bull thing, the Minotaur. But he doesn't have a Minotaur. He just says that. I didn't feel bad in the least for taking their money to kill something that didn't exist. Athens was filled with people who took the short chariot to work. Their city-state would never last. I give them 1 more generation before they're completely forgotten. The only problem would be evidence. How could I prove I killed something that didn't exist? I shook my head and filled a clay cup with water. Damn clay. But with this kind of money, I'd be able to afford a bronze cup or 2 soon enough. My parents died when I was 2 years of age. They were killed in a strange ox cart accident involving a duck and a single olive. This old guy, Deuteronomy, took me in and taught me the fine art of theft. I stole for the 2 of us while we lived quietly in this house. He died when I was 10. After a while, thieving bored me, and I turned to spying. When I was 13, I sold the Athenians a lie that strangely turned out to be true. Who knew Poseidon really did have a kraken? The Athenians believed me, and as a result, I've been taking their money and selling them lies ever since. But this killing for money was new. I wasn't terribly fond of Crete either. People ignored me completely. Maybe after this job I could disappear, see the world. I was good with a knife and knew my way around poisons. Deuteronomy believed in a well-rounded education. I could take care of myself, and had for years. First things first. I carried the bag of money to my bedroom and yanked the bed away from the wall. After tucking the bag in a hole I had hidden there, I shoved the bed back and lay down on it. It was hot, and the night was filled with the humid stench of animals, ripe olive groves, and people. Yes, leaving after the job was done was a good idea. Wait until after I get paid the rest and just disappear. I'd probably leave Greece altogether. What would be the point of staying? Maybe I'd even turn faux assassination into a little family business, train the kids and grandkids. Then I threw up in my mouth a little because that would require getting married. Greek boys were gross, always oiling up and wrestling in the nude. What the hell was that all about? I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, daylight flooded the room and someone was banging on the door. "Who is it?" I asked in the gruffest voice I could manage. "Kodos sent me," the male voice answered. I only had two options: open the door and let him in, or keep it barred, grab the money, and slip out the window. But I was curious about what kind of moron Kodros would send, so I opened the door and dragged the man inside. "Who are you?" I asked, shutting the door behind him. As I looked him over, my knees grew a little weak. This was an Athenian? He looked more like Apollo. Gold hair, gold skin, and eyes as blue as the Aegean. He smiled, and my stomach flipped. "I'm Sparta." He gave a little bow. I wasn't used to men treating me with respect. Basically, they didn't look at me at all. "Sparta? Like the city-state?" He nodded. "Yes, my parents met there, so they named me after that place." "That's kind of weird," I said before I could stop myself. "Yes, it is," he agreed. "No one does that." We stood there, staring at each other for a moment. I motioned to the table and a stool beside it. "Please sit." I poured him a cup of water and stood back, studying him. Why did that idiot send someone? And why is he so cute and nice? Is he here to spy on me? "You said that Kodros sent you?" Adorably, Sparta blushed. "Yeah, I volunteered. I thought I could help you." "You mean spy on me?" I folded my arms across my chest. Sparta didn't seem so cute now. Kodros didn't trust me to kill a mythological monster? That bastard. Sparta rose from the stool and stepped close to me. He was taller than me, and just as gorgeous close up. "No, I came because I can do things." It was hard to hear myself over my heart beating. "Really? What exactly can you do?" My guard was up now. Not only did this guy notice me, he actually talked to me. That didn't happen. "What's your plan for killing the Minotaur?" he asked casually. "How I kill him is my business." My face was hot, and I could feel that vein pulsing in my forehead. I didn't need some stupid Athenian following me around. I moved to the door and opened it. "I think you'd better go." Sparta sighed and made his way out the door, which I may have closed a bit too loudly. He wouldn't last half an hour in the village. Everyone here knew everyone else, and we didn't like strangers. The boy would have to return home or get fed to the goats. If I had someone spying on me, I'd need to act quickly. Maybe I could just behead a bull and present that to the Athenians. Would they buy it? I could say that he was too large to bring back, so I just took the head. How was I going to behead a bull? I mean, the biggest thing I'd ever killed was a bird, and it wasn't too hard cutting his head off. But a bull? What about the horns? I could get the horns easily enough, but how would that prove anything to people who thought I needed spying upon? Obviously, this wasn't going to be as easy as I thought. And that stupid Sparta. He probably wouldn't go away. If he had half a brain, he'd hide in the olive groves. His blonde hair would really stand out. I'd have to shake him somehow, or threaten him. He'd asked what my plan was. I didn't have one. This job seemed so easy last night. Now it just seemed like a mess, one that would bring the Athenians down on me like a sack of, Athenians, when I failed. I could go now. There were 1,500 gold coins behind my bed. That would make it easy for me to run away and live fairly comfortably somewhere. All I'd have to do would be to wait until the middle of the night and just slip away. I could bribe a fisherman at the beach to take me across the sea in the opposite direction of Athens. In a few days, I'd be in Italy or Africa, and no one would miss me. No one would miss me. Wow, that idea stopped me cold. The only people who knew I even existed were the Athenian morons and Sparta. My neighbors would be hard-pressed to identify me as something other than that weird orphan girl. Even though it would be easy to fade away, I suddenly didn't want to. I wanted to prove I could do this. For some reason, it mattered that someone out there would remember who I was and what I could do. Slipping away in the night had merit, but it wasn't the right answer. I'd have to go to Minos's place, Knossos. Then, if Sparta was following me, he had to see that I was at least moving toward a plan, one that I really didn't have. I spent the day preparing for the trip. Deuteronomy had left behind a worn canvas pack that I filled with dates, olives, and bread. 2 handfuls of the gold coins and a wineskin filled with water took up the rest of the space. In the early afternoon, I napped. I'd have to move out late at night. By late evening, I'd sharpened my 4 bronze throwing knives that I'd stolen from a sailor 2 years past. They were good knives, and I could throw them with great accuracy. I could use them for self-defense and hunting along the way. The sounds of the village slowed to a stop as the night grew darker. Finally, I gathered my pack, stuffed my knives in my pockets, and headed out the door toward King Minos and his ridiculous, imaginary Minotaur. The road to Knossos was quiet. There was no moon to highlight my form as I stole along the side of the road, keeping to the trees and shadows. It wasn't very far, just 1 night's travel on foot. My body slid into a memorized rhythm of soundless flight. I'd been to Knossos before and seen the king's palace. I'd even slipped inside on occasion, unnoticed. I just had to get there. Once I did, I could find an inn and spend the next day in a room, developing a plan. If Sparta followed me, he would know that I went to pursue my assignment. If he didn't, well, that was fine too. Either way, just getting to Knossos felt like I was actually accomplishing something. A light breeze stirred the trees around me, and I felt a little peace. Running away in the middle of the night did not frighten me. No one would be traveling at this late hour, and if they were, they would not notice me. It was like being invisible. I liked being invisible. A twig snapped loudly behind me. On instinct, I slipped around the nearest tree and peered back into the darkness, waiting. He emerged soon after, his blonde hair practically glowing in the dark. Sparta worked his way past me on the road, neither looking right nor left. He seemed completely unfazed at walking alone. I waited to see if he would search for me, but he just kept going, staring straight ahead. If he hadn't been following me, then he'd guessed where I was going, which meant he expected me to complete the mission. I smiled and kept to the trees, never taking my eyes off him. I had the advantage, and that made me feel better. As dawn broke, Knossos was already crowded and busy. I lost sight of Sparta in the maze of people, but that was all right. Turning into a narrow alley, I found an inn that would be suitable, paid the innkeeper a little extra to forget I was there, and once inside my room, I collapsed on the bed. I awoke hours later and panicked at first. I'd promised Kodros 4 days, and I had less than 3 left. Getting to Knossos seemed like a big part of the plan, but the truth was I had no plan, none whatsoever, and Sparta was waiting out there somewhere. I had to pull it together. After a quiet dinner of snail stew in a dark corner of the inn's main room, I left the inn to explore the city. My dark hair and skin allowed me to fit in with the people of the city. I wore a gray veil around my head for additional subterfuge. It unnerved me to think there was someone out there looking for me. No one ever looked for me. The palace walls surrounded the town, and I found myself drawn toward its center. The rumor was that a labyrinth, designed by Daedalus, dominated the grounds, and that was where Minos joked about keeping the Minotaur prisoner. I was hoping that being there would launch some sort of inspiration. As I wove in and out of the everyday rabble, I heard snatches of conversation about the labyrinth. Workers bragged about working on the structure with such bravado, I knew they were all lying. Daedalus was known for carefully selecting his craftsmen. Still, there was a lot of community pride in the work. and I grew more anxious to see it. The streets were even more crowded now, and I felt like I was wrestling my way through the sea of bodies. At last I found a bench near a bright red wall and sat to gather my thoughts. "You found it." Sparta joined me on the bench, and I stared at him blankly. Where had he come from? Had he been following me all this time? Impossible. No one followed me. "This is the opening." He pointed to a sign that said simply, "Labyrinth." Huh. I thought it would be more dramatic than that. Oh well. "I just waited here for you to show up." Sparta smiled and cocked his head to the side. "I knew you would." I wanted to strangle him. I wanted to drag him inside and beg the gods that there really would be a Minotaur inside that would eat him. Maybe bringing back Sparta's gnawed-on carcass with a bull's horn would be proof enough for the Athenians. "So, let's go," Sparta said. My jaw dropped open. "You don't just go in? These things require planning," I said as if I really knew. "And it's not a tourist spot. You can't just go in and have someone carve your likeness onto a stone tablet with your arm around the Minotaur." Okay, I was flustered. This guy found me. Me. Someone who doesn't get found. Someone no one knew or noticed or worried about. I was furious. I was impressed. I was terrified. He nodded. "You're right. What, are you just checking it out or something?" "Of course I am," I recovered quickly. "Why on Olympus did Kodros think you could help me?" "I already told you. I have some special skills." Sparta looked a little pissed, and he was so attractive. I struggled with the urge to calm him down and make him happy. "What skills?" I asked. "I mean, I think I should know, now that we're here and all." "Soon," he said. Now I was pissed. "Fine," I snapped a little too loudly. "Then you stay here for the rest of the day doing surveillance. Make note of anyone who comes or goes and what the procedure is. I'll find you tonight." I had no intention of finding him tonight. "What's surveillance?" I threw my hands up in the air and stomped off dramatically. A few minutes later, I swapped my gray veil for a red one as I faded into the crowd. My thoughts were racing. Did that boy really think you could just walk in and kill a non-existent creature? No, you needed a plan. You needed to be prepared. That's when I realized that I really didn't know what I was talking about. Hell, I didn't even know what surveillance was. In fact, I'm pretty sure I made that word up just now. As for planning, I'd never killed anyone for money before. How exactly did one do that? The idea of planning was a nice touch, though, and clearly I'd have to do that once I calmed down. I skirted the labyrinth wall until I'd put a lot of distance between me and Sparta. Were my eyes playing tricks on me? A small part of the wall seemed to be shaded differently, like it was a fake door from a fresco. It wasn't real, didn't even look real, but I couldn't resist running my hands over the stone. Except that it wasn't stone. It was fabric, painted to look like stone. My hands passed through the material, and I realized that this was some sort of secret door into the maze. After looking around to make sure no one noticed, I slipped behind the curtain to the darkness inside. To my surprise, the curtain drew tight behind me, as if it were a door. How was that possible? My wonder turned to worry once I realized that it was now pitch dark inside, and I had no idea where the cloth was to get back out. I could chew out Sparta about having a plan, when in reality I was winging it. Someone else was in the darkness with me. I could hear them breathing. Did they know I was here? My hands reached the wall, and I frantically slid them around to find the door I'd just stumbled through. "Hello," a booming male voice said only inches away. "Nice to have company." Uh-oh, there really was a Minotaur, and he could talk, and he wanted a playmate, and I'd have to kill him and drag his stupid body all the way back to my village. And that would totally suck, because I wasn't sure I could even kill him, let alone get him out of here and get through Knossos with a huge dead Minotaur, sight unseen. "Come this way," said the voice, as a hand clamped down on my arm and dragged me away.
It's so nice to have someone to talk to."
This Minotaur seemed a little too happy, but maybe he got that way when some idiot accidentally stumbled into his lair. I didn't fight as we moved together through the darkness, mainly because I was in shock. It wasn't every day you come face to face with something you thought didn't really exist. Maybe that's how philosophers felt. I just allowed myself to be twisted and turned through a snake-like hallway. We stopped suddenly, and I saw a crack of light glimmering through some sort of door. My captor grunted and pushed, and the sound of stone grinding on stone filled the air.
"Have a seat,"
my host said, and I saw to my surprise that it wasn't a Minotaur. Actually, I almost would rather it was. Instead, I was in the presence of none other than King Minos himself.
"It's okay,"
he laughed, pointing at an ornate chair with cushions on it. Once I sat, he sat and looked at me expectantly. "Oh, Your Highness," I stammered. "You didn't just hang out with King Minos. That just wasn't done. You had to be announced by a guy with a lute or something. Yes, I was pretty sure that was right. I'm so sorry to have interrupted you. I should be on my way." It really was embarrassing. I was the girl no one saw or noticed. Now, in one day, I had this gorgeous Athenian actively looking for me, and I was expected to make conversation with my king, a man who terrorized the Aegean Sea with his navy, a man whose will was so terrible it made the gods tremble, a man who was rumored to be the son of Zeus himself. I thought I was going to throw up. Minos frowned.
"Are you all right, girl? You've gone green."
I shook my head vigorously. Throwing up in the presence of such a king would not do. "I'm fine. Just, surprised to see you here, Your Majesty."
"I guess that would be strange."
He stroked his beard before breaking into a huge grin.
"Do you play hide-and-seek? The queen won't play with me, and I love that game. Of course, as king, I get to do all the hiding."
Minos nodded his head hopefully. I should probably be getting back. I rose to my feet on shaking legs. Minos pouted and stuck out his lower lip.
"At least talk to me, or tell me a story."
Okay. How could I refuse? What do you want to talk about?
"Oh, I don't know. Not the weather. That's so boring. Everyone always wants to talk about the weather around me. Why is that?"
He seemed genuinely confused and possibly insane. A little of each, maybe. Well, maybe they're intimidated by you and figure that the weather is the safest topic? He sure intimidated me. I could see how look at those clouds or it might rain would be preferable to anything that might end up with your head being removed.
"Intimidated,"
Minos said, staring off into space thoughtfully.
"What does that mean?"
I froze. This wasn't good. You always heard about these tests from the gods and how if you answered the riddle wrong or cut off the wrong Gorgon's head, you'd end up deformed and guarding a golden fleece or something.
"I like bubbles."
Minos bounced happily into another topic, and that's when I realized that my king, the sovereign of my land, was an imbecile. "I like bubbles, too," I said slowly. "Your Highness," I said as an idea came to me. "What about the Minotaur?" The king burst into laughter, rocking back and forth with glee. I took that to mean he wasn't upset in an off-with-your-limbs kind of way.
"Oh, that's good, really good."
Minos wiped away the tears that streamed down his face.
"Minotaur, indeed."
He clapped his hands joyfully, and I waited for the laughter to subside. "So there's really no Minotaur?" I asked carefully.
"No. You mean people really believed that? You must tell me how you heard it."
His breathing was slowing, and he was starting to calm down from the laughing fit. "They do, especially the Athenians." I nodded to show that I really knew stuff.
"Yay!"
Minos clapped his hands again.
"I hate those stupid Athenians. They're always, Athena is smarter than Zeus, and our city-state is bigger than yours. I'm glad they think it's real.
I finally had a plan. Your Majesty, they believed it so well they hired me to...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?